We wachten wel. We zijn live voor, maar er zit toch nog niemand in. We wachten even een paar minuten.
Goed.
Even checken. Let me just, I'll switch to English, but let me just check if everything on the back end is working.
Yes, check.
Yep, we're live. All right, awesome. What's up, Crypto Thomas? How are you doing, buddy? Tim, can you say hi? And then Thomas, can you tell us if you can hear us both?
Good afternoon, Thomas. Hope you're doing fine. And you can hear me. Good to see you here.
All right, we are live on Twitter as well. All good over here. Hearing all. Perfect, man. All right, we're all good.
Cool.
We're gonna wait 1 more minute, have people drop in, and then we're gonna get this show on the road. Let me get my email software. Oh, that was your email. What was it now?
It's my email, I think. I will shut it off.
All right. Where's it gonna start, Tim?
Yeah.
I think people still have to get used, because normally I do a 5-minute countdown, and now I do not.
And you can.
So probably everyone's conditioned to be like, I'll wait 5 minutes and then join in. All right, guys. Yelena, how are you doing? Good to see you as well. Must be early for you, early and cold in Canada. GM, good afternoon for us. All right, guys. Good to see you. Tim, welcome. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
What's up, Ekru? What's up, Zish? Good to see you guys. All right, in this stream, we're going to do things a little bit differently than normal. We are going to look ahead this time in the week. We're going to see, okay, what are the opportunities for us in the week ahead? Obviously, the best thing to do is to start with Bitcoin. That's what I'm going to do. And then after that, we'll probably look into altcoins, because I think it's better to look at altcoins in the current environment. Tim, what do you think about it? Agree. So we're going to look mostly at altcoins, but first we're going to dive into Bitcoin a little bit. So I'm going to start it off, and then in a bit I'm going to hand it over to Tim. So we're going to use the 80% intervals to see if there are some interesting point of interest for us, some interesting demand and supply zones, as Tim will surely do it. So first, a quick education about, okay, what again is the 80% intervals, right? The 80% intervals is, we know we have in this case, I'm looking at the weekly intervals. I've already drawn this one out on the chart. So the 80% intervals are indicating, in a very simplest essence, we know that we have a weekly P1 and we have a weekly P2, right? So we have the first pivot of the week. In this case, this is the Monday high, and the Monday low is P2 because it was put in after the P1. So what we're looking at here is this box is basically showing us that 80% of weekly P1s are put in within this zone right here. And how it does this is that simply it looks at, in this case, I've selected the last 2 years, and then it's calculating the range, just looking at, okay, how far from the weekly open has P1 generally speaking been put in, or like for just each specific week it has looked at it. So say 1 week is plus 0.5%, the other week is plus 2%, and so on. And then in the end, it calculates all the data, and then it checks, okay, in which zone does 80% of those weekly P1s get put in? So that's exactly what is being done here. So say now we have the weekly open at this level. So basically what it has calculated is that if the P1 is the high, then in the last 2 years, 80% of weekly P1s have been put in between the weekly open and 4.37% above the weekly open. Now, why is that useful to us? Because it allows us estimate where the first important point of the week pivot is going to be, and it also helps us in estimating likely targets. For example, a good one to show is Ethereum from last week. Let me check if I have the right chart there. Nope. Then it must be this one. There it is. So last week, for example, you saw that the weekly P1, the first pivot of the week, was put in nicely in that box that we were looking for, right? So these are calculated at the start of the week. And the weekly P2 was put in at the edge of that weekly P2 box, so we can also use it to estimate, okay, what is a likely target for us, which is what I used last week as well to estimate that 91K was a logical bottom for Bitcoin. All right, so that's a little bit of what it is. So it gives us a realistic range of where price is going to end up, more or less, in the week to come. So first of all, Bitcoin. If I'm looking at this, first thoughts, I want to keep it rather short because I think Bitcoin is quite simple at the moment. I think two things are happening. Or well, one thing mainly, Bitcoin is consolidating at the moment after putting in a high 99.7K. Now, what's probably going to happen now is that a lot of people are impatient for 100K. They want 100K to happen yesterday. What's going to happen is that people are going to over leverage long into 100K. 100K is going to happen. I'm pretty sure about that. But in these kind of circumstances, I would say it's more likely that price likes to consolidate a bit and fuck people over. We can also see that from a Bitcoin dominance, which, I'm going to ask that to Tim later, which seems to be, wow, what a drop. Seems to be breaking down, right? So as long as Bitcoin dominance is going down and Bitcoin is ranging, then of course we want to be looking at altcoins. So what I think is going to happen, if I look at the 80% interval ranges for Bitcoin, then we see two possibilities, right? We either have weekly, anything above the weekly open. So right here in this zone is if the weekly P1 would be the high, so say this would happen, and then price would go there. And anything below it would be the opposite, or let me put it like this, when weekly P1 would be the low. Now we see that the high of the 80% P1 interval is 101.7K. I personally don't think Bitcoin is going to break 100K while it's consolidating with Bitcoin dominance dropping. So for me, the more logical conclusion would be to assume a range, to assume that the weekly high will be P1. So somewhere, it could be this one already, somewhere here, where you put in the weekly high below 100K, I would say, until Bitcoin dominance starts picking up strength again. And enough people have lost faith in the fact that we're going to see 100K right now. So I personally think that it's more likely to assume that price is going to go consolidation just sideways. And it's probably what's going to happen. And therefore, we're going to take a look at altcoins and do the same thing and see if there are more likely setups. Because also, I wouldn't take a long here and pass on. Okay, I'm long from here, but yeah, I personally wouldn't do it here. Those are my general thoughts on Bitcoin. Tim, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I have the same thoughts because we are on a higher time frame. We are building a range, as you already mentioned.
Right. Let me show you the screen. All right, you can see your screen.
Yeah, if you look to the top, just below the 100K, then we get the pullback, and we dropped last week to last Tuesday to, let's say, 91K. And from there, we touch the equilibrium. So we have our range confirmed. And this is also what you see on the lower time frame. We are in a sideways range, right? This is the bigger range. And I think also because what you said already about the Bitcoin dominance, it's dropping. So that Bitcoin will stay here for a while. So what I'm expecting a little bit is that I'm hoping at least, right, that the supply is taking over a little bit, that we get in this coming week perhaps another drop below that 91K, and then from there look for an accumulation towards the 100K. And in the meantime, perhaps we can look for altcoin possibilities. But yeah, as far as I'm looking into it, there are a little bit different signs, right? When we have the top here on the all-time high, if you pull simply market structure from top to down to bottom, we have this structure here, and after that local bottom last week, where you already called that one, we broke structure back to bullish right here. So here was the break of structure, and this is simply on the mid time frame on the 1 hour. Here we broke structure back again to bullish, and there we came into supply, and supply is still in control. We broke down internally back to bearish right now, and we are seeing at this moment, because we are trending from this low to that high, we're trending up, we're forming a new local range where we have the model 2 distribution to the downside. So my technical target will be this low of Thursday, so that is below 95k. So I believe in this coming hours, or perhaps today, tomorrow, we will continue to go lower, and the first demand zone I'm seeing a little bit is around just below 94k. That is what I'm expecting a little bit about TA of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so similar thoughts. It seems like the most reasonable scenario. Also from a psychological point of view, consolidation seems to be the play right now.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, so guys, I think enough has been said about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not the play at the moment. As Admiral Ed said it in our group, why waste time on Bitcoin at the moment? Yeah. So let's dive into some alts. Guys, if you have some alt requests, please drop them in the chat. We're gonna look at them. But first, I think, and Tim, I don't know your alts, but obviously the most important alts at the moment that also seem to have a little rotation going on are Solana and ETH. So I think it would be cool to look at Solana and ETH. ETH is definitely the stronger one. So let's start with ETH at the moment. You know, everyone's eyeing that breakout. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to draw the intervals. And Tim, maybe you can draw the intervals with me. I'll show my screen real quick. So for anyone who's not used to this, you can go to this page right here, right? If you have the minimum analytics dashboard. And again, I'm sorry for the horrible design. It is a development version. I'm working on the full version. But here we can say we have the weekly selected, and we see here ETH. We have all the intervals for all the different assets. So we see that the P1 interval low is at 3,555 and the P1 interval high at 3,907. So what I'm going to do is basically copy last week's interval. Right there. Those out. So the P1 interval low was 3,555. So we see that has gone higher than last week, obviously, because we had a bullish week on ETH. P1 interval high is 3,907. So again, this is going to give us a good idea of where price is going to put in the first important pivot of the week and the second. P2 high is 4,204.
You're going too fast, man.
I'll repeat them. Okay. They're on my chart as well. You can see them, right?
Yeah.
So these are the intervals. All right. So basically, we see that ETH is already almost at the lows of it, right? And the general rule of thumb is the further this would go out of the box, the less likely it is to take out the weekly high, right? Because 80% of weekly P1s are put in within this box, right? So with an 80% certainty, more or less, we can say that the first pivot of the week will be somewhere within this box. So yeah, if I look at it first glance, I wouldn't necessarily short against that. It's a very strong local uptrend right here. But I also know that we've tapped into supply right there, but that is Tim's area of expertise. So Tim, I actually want to, because there's two ways we can use this, right? I want to say, first of all, we can check, okay, where will we most likely put in the first important pivot of the week, which is going to be somewhere, most likely somewhere in between here. But if we say, for example, we go down, we have a bearish week, we can also use it to see the most likely targets for the week. So for example, somewhere in here, you wouldn't look, especially in this uptrend, you wouldn't look any lower for this week. Tim, do you have the intervals?
I haven't. No.
All right. Then I'm gonna hand over the screen to you. And
These
I
are
would. Huh?
this is correct, right?
Let me check. 4, 2, 3, 5, 5, 2. I cannot read the numbers very clearly. Can you read them up? Can you just read them up?
4204.
Yeah.
3907.
Yeah.
3557.
30. Yeah.
And 3228.
Yeah, perfect, man. All right. So first of all, I would say just do your regular TA, and then after that we can see if there's anything interesting within those boxes.
Okay. Let's start off with the weekly. I've talked about it earlier on with this weekly range where we are into in the beginning of this year, when Bitcoin put in is also its all-time high in March. ETH created this kind of a range. It was also less weaker than, or it was a bit weaker than Bitcoin at the moment, and we get a significant drop towards this manipulation. It looks like a little bit of power of 3, right, where we broke out the structure. And on the weekly, what it looks like is that this could be a interesting pivot low in this coming hours, I believe. Also with that 80% chance of the weekly P1 interval low, because if you look on the daily to this range, we have a daily order block, and that is also a market structure low on the lower time frame. And we have here also a daily fair value gap. It's not a big one, but it's covered by a daily order block. And here below, we have also right here some nice demand build up from a sell to buy model, right? So these are my point of interest for ETH on a higher time frame perspective. And that is also in line a little bit with the intervals. So the first interesting point is that we will touch the daily fair value gap. That could be also the chances of a P1 interval low. So if we dive in a little bit on lower time frame, so what we are currently seeing, let me check for a good and proper market structure. Yeah, is that we have on the 4 hourly, from this low up, we have this kind of market structure on 4 hour. I will skip a few points. This is my external market structure on the 4 hour. This is not a pullback. We have not 2 consecutive bearish candles trading lower than each other. So this is my end. It's my previous week high, or this was the Asia high, right? So this is also my market structure low. That is in line with the daily order block, daily fair value gap. And that is liquidity I have here, of course. We have built up some liquidity. So this will be a great place to look for an entry on a second leg to the upside. And why are we rejecting in this supply? That's very simple, because here we have a daily order block. This is the only supply remaining of ETH before, in my opinion, the all-time high. We have not much left there. And if you also look to the intervals, if we put in 80% the weekly P2 interval high, we will take out all these weak highs here. And that could be also a great place to look for a potential top for this week. So my plan a little bit on ETH is that we will do something like this right here, form a little local range there, and then go for that highs. But it's only valid in my opinion because we have multiple weeks now that we put in a pivot on the Monday. So I would not see tomorrow a low, right? So the best case will be that we put in today a low and a high, and then tomorrow we will go towards that pivot high here on the weekly for today.
Yeah. So for me, there's basically 2 scenarios to see that happening, because the point of interest is in the P2 interval. So it's already, so if this would happen this week, you go into that point of interest, the first one you drew out, the demand zone, and then if price were to go back up and take out the weekly high, that would be a low probability pivot, right? That would estimating there would probably be like, I don't know, 1 out of 5 weeks or something that would pull something like that off. But I could see it happening because we are in a bullish uptrend, and I think ETH is strong at the moment. So if anywhere it would happen, but I would argue that you would rather have it happen sooner rather than later, right? So it's like you said, you would want to see that drop pretty quickly, like today, because then at least you would still have a Monday pivot.
Exactly.
Monday or Tuesday. So a quick drop today. If not, I think the other scenario, which would be statistically more likely because you would have the P1 within the 80% interval, is that you could see a more slow grind down into that demand zone. And then price would end up in the P2 interval, right? So it would be a good target zone as well for the week to end. But that would indicate a bit more bearish week.
Yeah,
the pullback week.
Yeah, pullback week, especially in the beginning of the week, I think. And perhaps coming into the end of the week to the weekend, we could see a relief.
All right, but so the conclusion is first lower, right?
First lower, yes.
First lower. So that makes sense. So the thing to do here is set alerts for the demand zone. I'm guessing you have alerts set there, Tim?
Yeah, I have alert sets below 35.30, but you can also put it at the 80% weekly interval low.
Yeah.
That's at 35.50, let's say.
Yeah, because let me quickly check the stats for ETH. Let me quickly show my screen there so we can all see it. Solana, ETH, because I think ETH has been doing very well as well with the Mondays, just like Bitcoin. So what we see here is less. So ETH is less, well, still like 70 of the last 30 weeks, 76% of weeks put in the P1 on Monday. So if we put in, say, a weekly low on Tuesday, then chances are obviously going to be less. I know it happened last week, but it's going to be less that you take out the weekly high. And just to mark that one out, like Bitcoin is an absolute beast when it comes to weekly P1s on Monday. I mean, look at this. In the last 30 weeks, 86.7% of them put in the weekly P1 on Monday. Absolutely insane. Really insane. Yeah. This is the highest it has been in the last 5-6 years. So you really don't want to trade against Monday P1s, especially for Bitcoin. But Ethereum, 75% is also a remarkably high number, right? So just to reiterate the fact that if that were to happen on Ethereum, so we go into the demand zone below, and you do this on a Tuesday, then taking out the weekly high becomes less likely, right? So maybe you would see more something like, I don't know, this, and then next week you would go for the high. That's the thing I would look out for.
But if we get a quick flush during New York Open, right? So let's say it's not that far away. It's $100. If we get a $100 drop from New York Open to, let's say, this afternoon, beginning of the evening, that could be the catalyst for a nice pivot low. So also
exactly. So that's my point, right? That you want to see it today, rather today than tomorrow.
Exactly. And
so if you see a quick flush today in here, then it's potentially a weekly low. If it happens later, then it's it could still be a weekly low, but taking out the weekly high becomes less probable.
Yeah, agree.
All right. So that's a conclusion for ETH. Alert set here. If it happens today, decent chance for a reversal back to the highs. If not, if it happens tomorrow or later, then we want to be more conservative with how far up ETH can go, and we're maybe looking at a consolidation week, which would not be a weird thing either. All right, Tim, unless you have something else to say on ETH, we can quickly check ETH and then or Solana, and then go over to.
One thing I want to show you is this supply zone, which has been left with this drop this morning, and we could look for shorts, of course, in this zone towards a new low for the day, because it's a low probability hour, and the invalidation is, of course, So let's say this could be a plan, right? Something like this. You need to check, of course, when price is into the zone, if you get a bearish reaction. So just follow up the market structure of a lower time frame when we are coming into that zone. So if you're doing something like this from this low, you could now see we are trending up, right? We're creating higher highs and higher lows at the moment. So if you're doing something like this, coming into the zone, and here we see a break of structure back to bearish, you can enter a short trade. With the invalidation then, of course, here, so it would be an entry like something like this, and then you have a good risk to reward. So that I'm having this also as my plan.
And this is where, I mean, since we're going there, why not go all the way? This is where you can also, look at, because where is that supply zone, Tim?
Starting at 36.50 till
yeah, I see it. I got it.
12.
I got it. All right. So let's go a little intraday. Why not? Seems to make sense to look for a short. Just gonna quickly share my screen, show you what I'm doing. So what we just did with the weekly P1 intervals, we can do with the session P1 intervals as well. So the New York session just opened. Well, this is the Minome Analytics New York session. We measure it from 12 p.m. until 8 p.m. So we can do exactly the same thing. This is the supply zone that Tim is looking at, and obviously we would like to hit it during the New York session. So what we can do is basically the same thing as what we just did with the weekly intervals, but we can check, okay, but where would the session P1s usually be put in for New York, and where would the P2s usually be put in? So let me quickly check if I actually had session selected. Yeah, so then you just select the session here instead of the weekly time frame, and we can see the P1 interval highs one I would be most interested in is 3630, and it is right here. So in my opinion, it's not, because you also have this well, very small fair value gap here. Because here's the thing. We know that 3630, I'm just showing this for people as well so they realize or understand how they can use this new feature. But you know that 80% of New York P1s, if it is the high, would actually be put in within this zone right here. And the P1 interval low would be 3540. 3540 right there. And then P2 interval high. So where is it going to end up? 3713. 3713. P2 interval high. P1 interval low. And I'll leave the P2 interval low for now. All right, so what we know is that 80% of the New York P1s, right, which is now put in here, would happen in this zone right there. So if you would want to see a move back down, the highest probability area to do it would be to do it somewhere within here and then go down for a new P1. The supply zone is above it, so it could happen, but we also have to understand that a move like this is statistically less likely. What is a very, I don't know what you think, Tim, do you think there is a chance that we front run the zone and hit this very small fair value gap right here below it?
Yeah, we could do it. Yes, of course.
So this is something I then would be looking at. I mean, it's possible that we hit the supply zone, but we have to understand basically the very simplest way to put it is that the further we move away from here, the less likely it is to take out the New York low in the same session. It could still do it, but then it becomes more likely it's doing it in the other session, right? Okay. So far, this looks like a nice P1. But then this would not be a weird area to do it at all.
Agree.
Because that's more, and that's what I mean. It's more like it's more in the interval where you would expect the first pivot of New York to be. Right? It's within that zone. But let's see. Alert set. I still think this is a good zone, but it's good to manage expectations when it happens. But if any session is going to do it, it's going to be New York.
Agree.
All right. You want to switch to Solana?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to share your screen again. I would say do your regular TA. I am going to prepare the intervals and them over to you later on.
Okay. Let me check. Let me delete something. One moment. So I start off with the weekly. And what we have done is that we created a new all-time high on Solana. And what we did is we SFP'd it 2 weeks ago, and last week we didn't close. We closed also below with the weekly close in a bearish candle, right? So I believe Solana is good to have a pullback. Last week we get the reaction of this weekly fair value gap that we have left here. So this is a weekly fair value gap, and it reacts from it. But I believe that this pullback isn't over yet, and we did. I don't know exactly here. We put in a lower low. Yes, we put in a lower low. But for the weekly perspective, I'm looking at perhaps a deeper pullback towards this another weekly fair value gap, and it's also a weekly order block just below of it. So from weekly perspective, I'm looking at this because here we have also the break of structure level. So it would be in line from this weekly market structure low that we put in around this weekly fair value gap, perhaps that weekly order block, our new higher low for expectational order flow, a higher high, right? So that is what I'm seeing on a higher time frame. So looking at to the daily, what we are currently at, and it's quite interesting at the moment, is that we have a daily order block right here, and we have here some price consolidation before the expansion to the all-time high. So this could give us some kind of a reaction. That is logic. So to determine that a little bit, I was seeing for a nice little zone right here, a nice little range where we put in this last week low. We created a pullback. We came back into supply. Supply takes over, and we get a push towards the downside. And the weekly pivot high was also at Asian Open right here. Let me put it in. Weekly P1. But we get an SFP of this initial range low. So we get the first reaction of the daily order block. So what I want to see a little bit, this could be a nice low, is that price get a little bit of time displacement and then create a nice little return to zone. So we build up some liquidity, and then perhaps we get here a Model 2 accumulation, or perhaps we get another SFP of the low and then go for that high. That is what I'm aiming for Solana. So I have a little bit of patience right now. On the lower time frame, we could see now that we do have a break of structure back to bullish right here, but I don't have the confirmations yet to enter, but perhaps you can check that with the intervals because we create now a structure back to bullish on the lower time frame at least. So on the higher time frame, I'm interested. It is current zone, but if you look to the weekly, we could retrace a little bit deeper. That's my TA, a little bit of Solana.
All right, I'll take over. I'm busy because that sounds a little bit in line with what the intervals are saying. P1 interval lows will be at 217. One interval high, 255. This one at 298. All right. All right, so let me double check those. 217, yes. 255, yes. 194, yes. 298, yes. All right. So the interesting thing about Solana is that what you basically see here I mean, if you notice it, that this zone is way smaller than this zone right here. Basically, what that means is that, and it's logical because Solana has been really strong. What it means is that the bearish week see less displacement, generally speaking, 80% of the time, than bullish weeks see bullish displacement, right? So bearish weeks are relatively short, so relatively not that bearish, so to say, because as you see, usually 80% of the time they end up in here, whereas the bullish week are relatively strong, because 80% of the time they end up down there or up there. So the range you were looking at, Tim, was this one, right?
Yeah, correct.
Was this one. So this is what I mean. This is really beautiful, because if you're looking for a further weekly retracement, then what you want to see is preferably, the highest probability point is to put in the first weekly pivot here. And this is how you combine TA with statistics in this case, because if you're looking at, you were looking for a sweep here, right? And then potentially you move back down.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at that, that would be a great place to do it, because it's somewhere at the edge of, this 80% interval zone. So you know that if something like this were to happen, then that sets up to be, and you get a reaction there, then that sets up to be potentially a very good zone to put in the first pivot of the week. And therefore, you could take out the low from there. And then if that happens, you can use this zone to determine where this week is most likely to end. Where are you looking at again, Tim, for the total retracement?
For the further retracement?
For the low.
For the weekly perspective, that is beginning at 183. So that is a weekly order block. But on the daily perspective, I'm expecting to take out, to come into the weekly fair value gap around $200.
Let me draw those out as well. Oh yeah, that fair value gap's really nice. So this is what I mean. All right, let me just give those different colors. Gray. Switch back to my screen. So, all right. So this is the fair value gap you're talking about, right?
Yeah, correct.
So this is what I mean. So if you're targeting for a weekly low, so say this happens, right? This would be the ultimate play. Say this happens where you take this out in that range and you go back down. Once you take out the low, at some point you're going to see, okay, it's going to be more likely a down week. Then you're looking for targets somewhere within here, which means that if this week price reaches this zone, then this is a very interesting place to look for a bounce along, right? You have a point of interest, you have some liquidity there, the fair value gap. We have statistics on the fair value gaps as well, but we're not going to go into them this stream because we have other assets to look at. But then, if price gets here by the end of the week, so, in that 194-200 zone, those are exhausted levels. So for that specific week, only 20% of weeks would go further than that. So this is if it's always the if, right? We react. If price gets to the fair value gap below, then this is in this week, then this is a very interesting bounce zone. Does that make sense, Tim?
That makes sense completely.
But I really like it, man. Like, this range really neat. Obviously, right now, this could be the low for the week as well. So that's something we have to take into account. But if we do get to the highs of the range and get that displacement, then this is a very nice move to look into, because it would be a very logical place to put in the first pivot of the week. And if we do go down lower, so say that doesn't happen and you just do something like this, then, well, there's no short to be had. And this would be the zone to look for a first potential bounce, at least. Does that sound about the plan?
Yeah, for me, I'm hoping to get into a long position, that we will start a little bit consolidating here, because supply is a little bit on a lower time frame in control, right? If you look on 50-minute, we created from that weekly open, we created a great supply zone that is just above the equilibrium of the bigger range which we are talking about. And we left from the drop this night, we left with London session, we left also some supply where we are currently into. So what I'm a little bit hoping of is that we get a SFP back to the low, right there, and then perhaps get a proper break of structure, and then that demand is taken over supply, and then we could target, perhaps that will be the weekly low of the week. We could target the weekly high for this moment. So that is what I'm a little bit hoping for. But my bias for now is in not play longs at the moment.
Yeah, gotcha. First, see some more signs of strength.
Yeah, exactly. We are now currently we are now into supply, and we did create a break of structure here, but you want to see follow through, and when you get follow through, you want to flip this supply and then create a pullback and then go towards the pivotal point high on the weekly. So that is Asia high. But otherwise, I think we will get one move down, and that is what I'm a little bit hoping for to put in a nice little long position, right? If Bitcoin starts consolidating again, and that could be a nice place again for Solana.
Yeah. All right. Tim, I'm reading that some of the screen is in 720p. Can you check? Because I think mine is in 1080. Can you check if you bet share screen? If you do the little arrow next to you share, do you see like a button that says sharing 1080p?
No, it's only saying end my screen share.
Okay, well, I'll look in that later. Sorry, guys, for now. Let me see if I can.
The problem with my monitor, it's a 34-inch screen.
That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, well, sorry about that, guys. That is what it is right now. My screen is, I think, 1080p. If please correct me if I'm wrong. But let's go on to some other alts, unless you want to say something more about Solana, Tim?
No, at the moment not.
All right, then we have Rune and Fed to look at. So I would say let's start with Rune.
Okay, let me check. It's a long time ago I did this TA on Rune.
It's one of the assets that hasn't run yet, right?
Yeah, I see. Let me check. I'm first starting off the higher time frame. You can see here a previous internal fair value gap. This here was also created multiple fair value gaps, and if you draw this completely to the right, this was the bottom, right? On 5 August. Anyway, we are trending up at this till the all-time high. So the all-time high is not the all-time high, but the high of March. From there, we are trending down, and let me check what the structure is saying right now. So this is structure from that moment in time. So here we break structure back to bullish. After sweeping that liquidity, we have to break structure back to bullish. So let me check what we do have from there. We don't have a clear weekly structure. Let me check. We did have a weekly order block, including that weekly fair value gap here. That has been touched for in the beginning of November. Do we have some supply? Yes, we do have on 8.3. We have some supply there. It's also weekly fair value gap below. This is my higher time frame perspective. I do believe that this will get taken out. This is an internal high. So I'm bullish on the higher time frame. Let's see for the daily, what do we get on the daily? Did we get a reaction? Are we into a range, right? Yes, we are into a range. We are trending up. I will show you that we are trending up on this time frame where we put in higher highs and higher lows, right? And this is my last market structure pool right here, where we have initial range high, initial range low. We deviated once, and then we get the look like a model 2 distribution to the downside. Where do we have some demand left? Let me check on some other time frames. So around EQ, currently finding support a little bit here on the 6 hourly order block. It's a little bit bigger. We get the reaction from at the moment. Where is put in the weekly high at this moment is at 6.3. Building up some liquidity right here. Logic, we get the reaction here. So this is my supply zone on the medium time frame of the 2 hour. There was set my alert for potential short idea if I get my confirmations. And this is all liquidity right here. And we do have here demand. So this is a little bit my TA on Rune. Let me check if we, on which time frame we broke structure back to bearish that we have done on the 1 hour. This is my structural break back to bearish. From this, from the low, we are creating higher highs, higher lows, and this was my last higher low that created the high of this weekend. And from there, we broke structure back to bearish. So I think supply is in control at the moment. We get the reaction of that 6 hour demand zone. It's logic, but we are into premium pricing of the bigger range. So I should not take a long in consideration at this moment. Because we are into premium pricing, and I expect because the order flow on the 1 hour at least is back, breaking back to bearish. So I would rather to look for shorts than for longs at the moment.
All right, and if I can add something to that, if you're looking for a short this week, then that downside seems to be relatively limited. Compared to upside. I do see, and I think that makes sense, right? Because if you zoom out, then right now you're in a pretty much a slow grind up, with this pretty much being a liquidity hunt by the looks of it. So, but also just from a purely statistical perspective, if we're going to have that down week, which does make a lot of sense, I also see the model too. If we're going to have a down week, then downside seems to be limited, at least with 80% certainty. It's not going to go lower than this right here, so the 4.856, which also is for a very interesting level. You have some liquidity right here. Or do you see that differently, Tim?
No, that's correct. It seems the same.
Because I see some interesting liquidity right there. All right, I have to change all my stuff since I switched to white charts, because I see some liquidity here at the lows, for it to make it down, it can make it down to here, right? It could make it down next week or something. But this week would be a very rare event. Let me just double check if I had the numbers right. 4.856. 4.856 indeed for the low on Rune. So if we're going to have that down week, then personally, I think this would be a very interesting area to look for bounces later on this week. It also really depends, obviously, when price reaches these zones. So if this zone is reached on, for example, Wednesday, then I would be much more inclined to look for a long there than if it would be on a Saturday or a Sunday, so to say. Because if this zone gets reached on Wednesday, then you know, well, it's statistically unlikely to go much further, right? 80% of the time price would stay in this if there is a bearish week. So if that happens on a Wednesday or a Thursday, you could also kind of conclude, okay, there's still a couple of days left in the week. So the more likely scenario, at least statistically speaking, is that you would go back down, go back up to put in to close the week a little bit higher than we put in the low, obviously. So this is a very interesting zone. And where did you say you were looking for a short, Tim?
Around the supply which has been created after the drop of this last night. So that is around $6.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Which would be a really good area, right? Because once again, if this would happen, then this would be within that zone, and then 80% zone for a move back down.
You take out,
this would,
yeah.
You take out that liquidity, and then this, I would not expect it to go any lower than this in case that happens.
Agree, and you can also see some equal lows, right? If you see, you have that pivotal low, right, around your weekly P2 interval low, and there we have on the right a wick.
Is it this one?
Yeah, that one. And if you
I see them.
These are equals, but the right one doesn't take out the left one, so that is liquidity for the market maker.
Yeah, I love equal lows.
Yeah, that will be definitely a target, right? So so if I want to enter a short, then that definitely will be my end target, right? When we take out the liquidity, then I think the market will reverse.
Yeah. So this is a really good way of using it, right? To look for targets.
Yeah.
Because we know that, I mean, if say you get that short confirmation, you get in here, I mean, the stop losses, I mean, you know that if you target here, at least for this week, will be statistically unlikely. Very, very unlikely. So each their own. And plus, you are in this slowly, upwards grind, so to say, which I personally do not like to, but it's very choppy price action. Very choppy.
Yeah, that's choppy. But that low, what you can see, right, and that daily low, right, the takeout, so the low at 4.23, the low of the range.
Yeah.
Yeah, that took out all the liquidity on the left, right? So,
exactly. So that's what I mean.
So
you have this.
That's a good pivot. That's a good pivot.
Yeah. I also think it's a good pivot because you have this slow grind up. It's like one of the assets that has not really run yet, even though it is a good coin. I would say it's not a complete shit coin, and it has a slow grind up. It took out all the liquidity here, so also that you wouldn't expect it to go much slower than this. So this actually would be a very interesting area to look at. I might set an alert there.
Yeah, I will do also.
I'll set an alert there. All right, let me quickly check what ETH is doing. Because we marked out this zone right here, but then we said, okay, but the session interval high, you would prefer to see it somewhere here, and which is why we said, okay, then this fair value gap also becomes interesting.
Yeah, and it did.
And so far, it's reacting of it. I think it's too early to say because the local structure still seems up.
Yeah, we need to wait for bearish signs, and that is, in my opinion, when we're touching supply or a fair value gap, we need to watch for the structure. So if you look, the only structure I see is on the 3-minute. And on the 3-minute, the market structure low is sitting at 36.10. So that one is needed to break back to bearish. But if you now slowly grind up to the supply zone or take out that high of the New York session again, then your market structure low will be at 36.70.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you need to have a little bit more patience.
Yeah, but so far no signs yet. I agree.
No.
Well, actually, one thing we can do for it, because I personally think it looks like a bullish session all around, but we need not guess. We can simply check statistics. So I'm just taking a quick look at what the biases are saying for this session, and I'm looking at the last 3 years worth of data, and there we see, bull, exhausted bull, strong bull. So yeah, I personally wouldn't short this New York session, because basically what this means is that all the sessions have now their highs way above, or at least that's if it's strong bull, but far above the P1 interval high, so where you would want to see it. So it looks like we had an early dump on Monday, followed by a New York recovery.
Yeah.
That seems to be the play. So personally, I wouldn't be shorting against strong bulls. One of my rules is that if I see, because this basically, strong bull basically means that if you were to take out the low of the New York session, it means that it would be a statistical unlikelihood, right? It's specifically less than 20% of the times that would happen from such a distance. So personally, if I'm looking for a short on the day, I would not want to see a strong bull session sign on the session. Not only that, we also see exhausted bear signs on the day, which is also what I shared in my analysis this morning, which basically means that we are somewhere near, or at least, with every push down, it gets more unlikely to go down further, because it means that less than 50% of the days see further negative bearish displacement. So if you have exhausted bear combined with strong bull signs on the session, so exhausted bear in the day, which means that less than 50% of days go down further, and you have strong bull signs on the session, which means less than 20% of sessions would take out the lows in the simplest form, then that's not something I would personally trade against, but each system is different.
Agree.
So, all right, then let's check out Fed. Well, let me just jump in. Oh, wait. I see. Let me just check. My screen is fine. Tim's slightly blurry. You should change screen view colors to dark, bad quality view. That's the solution, Tim. Dark mode. You have to join the dark side. No. All right. Ed is saying pull fixed volume on Rune. What's up, Ed? How you doing, bro?
I cannot trade it on derivatives, but only on spot. But that's fine for analysis, of course.
Well, let me quickly check volume pool. Oh yeah, we are bouncing from high volume area there. Oh yeah, right there. So we bounce from high volume node. I see what you mean, Ed. I would also be careful with shorts. I mean, I would personally not be into the short, but if it would get to the lows, I would be interested in buying some. But if you see this, especially with the upward facing grind and a nice low right there, I agree. Would be careful with shorts. Close Rune above 5.876. Significantly, we're going bullish. Yep.
Okay.
Upside area is quite significant. Same on ETH, very high support. We are right now. Let me. All right, Lars, what's up, dude?
You're Lars.
Lars also saying Doge. Okay, we have Fed and Doge. We're going to do. I mean, I love Doge. So let's do Fed. Doge, and then finally, if we have time left, we'll check. How do you call it? Fed. But agreed. I would be very careful with shorts. But if price, I would not short. I mean, I'm not shorting this market at all. I'm long only. But if it would get down to these lows, I'd be interested in buying it, and I would not expect it to go a lot lower. But yeah, I mean, this thing, it seems like it must break out. Like, how far is this still from all-time high? Not too bad, actually. What is that? 21. Oh, but this is not the all-time high.
Good to mention, Seth. I have some 10 minutes to left for the stream. I need to pick up my children then.
All right, man. Then I'm going to ask you to do analysis on Doge.
Yeah. I will also chart it on Binance because there we have more data, right?
All right.
Because on Bybit we take out already the all-time high, but on Binance we didn't. So we have more data, right? This is the all-time high. So, and we are currently facing some resistance of a 3-day order block. That's the only resistance we have till the all-time high, in my opinion. We get a pretty aggressive expansion to the upside. We have here the breaker structure. So currently facing some resistance. So I should be careful with longing, of course, here only after confirmation. We have put in on the 17th of November a nice pivotal low into a daily fair value gap. So this is a nice pivot. So let's look if we could find a kind of a range. Here we have this big expansion where we don't have built up any market structure or demand or something like that. So it looked like that Dodge is ranging right here a little bit now at the moment. And looking to the 18-hour structure, I do see an 18-hour range where this is your initial range high, initial range low we have here. And we get the deviation of last week Saturday high. It's also weekend high, so it's not, it's normal wise, that is not the best high there is. So this is my point of view at the moment. And let me check if there is a nice supply or demand zone created to look for an entry. And we get a great reaction at the moment. As you look at that 8-hour candle, right? That is a massive bullish reaction here.
And you have once again the upward grind. I like this kind of price action because it's the kind of price action that everyone is continuously shorting, hoping for the great breakdown, and they keep getting stopped out.
Yeah, exactly. So, so this is demand supply. Let me check a little bit. We did we create at hourly 1, hour 0, the weekly P1, the daily P1?
Let me check. Nope, hour 3.
Oh, hour 3, okay. But we do have this demand zone where prices now bounce from. Did we take out by this low? This, I'm just checking, right? If there is enough liquidity gets taken out, and we didn't take out this low here. So we have sort of equals here. Good to have in mind.
All right, well, I can tell you it's definitely very unlikely to take out the daily high today. It would be a 0.5% event.
So daily high is pretty clear.
Yeah, and also it actually, I mean, it can happen, but it would be 0.5%.
Okay, then we can look for shorts, right, for the coming days.
I mean, just for today.
Just for today, okay.
But I mean, personally, I wouldn't be shorting this chart. Like, it looks too bullish to me. I would just look for longs if it would get there. But I mean, that's me. I'm no scalper.
No, okay, clear. What I prefer to see is a little bit that we are creating a new range here, where we have this low from London session, right? Then somewhere we get a pullback confirming a range. We need to touch by the pullback the equilibrium, and from there looking for an accumulation so that this demand zone will hold for the rest of the week. It's a nice demand zone, right? It's in discount below the 0.5 of the bigger range. I believe still this is a good pivotal low. If you look on the daily, we're touching the equilibrium. Is it on the daily or on the 18 hour? What was it on the 3-day? It was on the 3-day. We're touching that fair value gap. So it looks like a good pivotal low, but we have here two equals that could get taken out, but we could also swipe this high here, because this is simply till 55 cents. This is the only supply remaining for Doge. So we will not blast straight through it. I don't believe that, but we could take out that previous week high. We could take that out probably this week. I don't know what the intervals is saying, but
I can show you. I've drawn them out. It's a very volatile day, I can tell you that much. So these are the intervals for Doge. Actually, the thing that surprises me is that the P1 interval is pretty small relatively to the P2 intervals. Basically, what that's indicating is that Doge it's very common to put in the first pivot very close to the weekly open before quite a massive expansion. Right now, we've already tapped outside both sides of the interval. This one is a little bit closer. Again, this is probabilistic, right? It's a probabilistic area. It doesn't mean that if we wick out of it, that therefore it's invalid. But generally speaking, the closer to this area, the better, statistically speaking, that area is to put in the first pivot. So the downside is limited towards the low of this. I personally wouldn't short towards it. I just find that if you have this kind of price action, it is the slow grind up. Although we did get a nice last push, but I don't know. I just think it looks, and generally, if you just look at it, it is up. You zoom out. So if we do get a down week, which we can check actually. Let me check. So we have now, first things first, we have Doge, 0.5% chance of taking the high. We have a very shitty low. The daily low at hour 8. It's been 126 days since hour 8 put in the P1, sorry, and 133 days since been putting in a P2. The reason I would not trade against this, and Tim, if you have to go, then just interrupt me. But the reason I wouldn't trade against this is because of this. We can see that already Doge has had an only 8.2% of days would see further displacement down than we've already had, right? Because we had this massive 14% drop. Welcome to the bull market. Massive 14% drop in a short amount of time. And, we've already reached the zone where only 8% of days would go further. So in terms of time statistics, this daily low is very, very shitty. And generally speaking, you would take it out. But you're betting on a less than 8% probability, right? So in these cases, I would say, well, I wouldn't trade against this. I personally would just wait out today, see what happens. Probably the session is also, let's see, bullish for Doge. We can check. Yeah, bullish. So not going to take out the low anymore today. I don't see it happening, right? So this is a good way of doing it. Yes, the P2 is shitty, but the session says that it's a 6% probability of taking out the session low. So that's probably not going to happen. More likely, we're going to see some form of consolidation in between these. This is often what you see happening because you basically took liquidity high, liquidity at the lows, probably some consolidation after. If I look for the week, interesting points of interest, and what are the main support and resistance you were looking at again, Tim?
At the moment, you mean?
Yeah.
I have demand zone where we currently bounced off from.
Yeah.
And slightly above us, around 43 cents, we have a supply zone on the 15.
All right, very locally.
Yeah, very locally. But above us, we only have that 3-day order block where price is already rejected from last week on 23 of November. So currently the high of 23 November.
Check your.
Yeah, this is the high that is in that 3-hour order block, or 3-day order block, sorry. But that is a high created on a Saturday, not this weekend, but the week before. So I think that could be a magnet, right? So then we could put in something like this. So something like this, we get a slowly move up, and then get the Model 1 distribution to the downside. That could also happen.
That would be my preferred play over a Model 2.
Yeah, my same. Agree.
Because it's just, if you see a slow grind up like this, it's the typical price action where, is what I said earlier, where everyone's just constantly like, people who short this, they have targets here, right? And people who short this, they will have targets here. People who short this, they will have targets here. That's how they work, right? They see, for some reason, if people like massively bullish see a slow grind, they always want to catch the big reversal, because that's the cool thing to do, right? To catch the top and then show the fat P&L parts. Oftentimes it doesn't happen. So if I would have to make a bet, I would be more inclined to say a bullish week for Doge than a bearish week.
Yeah, but I need to see first signs of strength, right? But if you look on the hourly structure, we broke it back to bearish as the main, the most of the assets. We broke structure back to bearish on the 1 hourly chart. That is also what I show you on Rune. That is also what we saw on ETH. It's also what we saw on Bitcoin. So at that moment of time, I first need to see some sign of strength. We are now currently with this pullback, but we didn't broke any structure on hourly, right? So this is simply a pullback.
Yeah, and if we go lower, I would be looking at this point of control.
Yeah, that would be a great place, right? Then you SFP that current low, and then that would be a great opportunity. Yeah. But what needs to be happen today, preferably, that we put in a monthly low on the Monday. Sorry, on the Monday a pivot low, and then going towards tomorrow or Wednesday to take out the current high of the week.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's why I always prefer to wait out the Monday, because after Monday you have some more information.
Yeah, but you can predict, right? But the Monday session is always important to have, also based on statistics, right? You know, everyone knows that Monday is a pivotal day. So whenever on Tuesday we take out the pivot high or pivot low, you know, the high or the low of the Monday is quite strong for the rest of the week.
Yeah, and we can actually check that for Doge. I don't know what the stats are for Doge. But another scenario, say you have a really strong bounce, because now you bounce from the very area high, also not bad. But say you take out this on, what do you call it? Tomorrow, maybe. Yeah, so Monday is not as strong for Doge as it is for example, Bitcoin. You see, it's like 55%, right. And lately even less.
Okay.
50,
currently ETH is in supply. It came into supply. But it's quite strong. So.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't expect, because everything is bullish, right? Everything, the statistics are showing a bullish session is most likely, and that's what we're seeing playing out.
Yeah. Okay, but now I really need to go.
All right, man. Tim, thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah, it was a really exciting stream, and we need to do it more often.
We will do it more often, man. Next session coming up.
Okay. Thank you all for being here, watching my TA questions.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna stick around for just a little while longer.
Okay, take care, man.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome. Till next time.
See you soon, man.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao. All right, guys. So since I'm at it, I want to also discuss my master plan for Doge. I don't know who's a Doge holder. I'm a Doge holder. I love Doge. And maybe you read my post already, but I have an temporary exit plan for Doge. First, let me finish this line of thought that I was saying. So, I'm going to wait for tomorrow, see what price has done. I obviously would not long this. I'm also just, I'm a spot holder for Doge. But if you would go down, this is once again, say you have a bearish week, then you're looking for the weekly low to be put in somewhere, in this area. And then obviously you look at the most logical places, which is the point of control, first of all, which is within that area. And then obviously we have the very area low. So say we get a bearish week, these are the two areas you want to be looking at. Firstly, I find that if you have this kind of price action, upside is more likely than downside on a higher time frame. So that's why I say, I'm a little bit more biased for a bullish week, because I just personally don't want to go against a slow grind up, which is also why I advocated for longs only on Bitcoin on 92K, as you might remember, because it was all just a slow grind up and you don't want to fade a slow grind up. And here, we did have that little, that spurred out of it, but then we failed to break any lows and now we're slowly grinding up again, But if we do get that bearish week, then this is the area and this is the area to be looking at, because here we have SFPs, equal lows almost, and here we have that point of control up the range. On a higher time frame, I have calculated a plan where I want to sell my Doge and when I want to sell my Doge. And that is on the 19th of January. I will show you this on the Binance chart, because I think I had it drawn out on there. Nope, I am mistaken. Where did I have that drawn out? Binance, Coinbase. Oh well, I will just draw it again. It's all good. All right, so if we're looking at, I have it on, I do have it on the Binance chart. Here it is. So this is where I am planning to potentially sell. And once again, you might have already seen this. And here's my theory on it. So I bought here. Let me get that on the daily. I bought here, sold here, and then bought back here. And now my next sell, I'm planning. Well, preferably I have it here, but preferably I would see it somewhere here myself on the 19th of January. Here's my thesis. As you know, and by the way, I don't think this would. The higher it gets, the more likely, obviously. But depending on where this is, it will be either here or here, I suppose. So this is yet to be determined, depending on when it is. But here's my thesis. 20th of January, we have the inauguration of Trump. Now, I've spoken to some non-crypto bros in retail, and I've heard them say that they're going to buy on the 20th of January. They're going to, specifically, we're talking about Bitcoin, because they said it's going to be bullish for Bitcoin, that Trump is going to be president. And on 20th of January, he's going to be president. So that's a good time to buy. We obviously know that that's not how the market works. And that the market, that's a classic buy the rumor, sell the news event. Best I've ever heard. Why for Doge? Because I do think there is a chance. We'll have to see how price develops for an inter-cycle top there. I don't think it's going to be the top, but especially for Doge, people are going to think the same way, right? They're going to be like, well, 20th January, Trump's going to be inaugurated, and that's also going to be the, official start of the Doge department, right? So the one that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are leading, the ones that are cutting the government for government employees. We're going to have a bad time. But so they're also thinking in the same lines as that, saying like, okay, if the 20th January, Doge department is going to start, and that's going to be a very good time for buying, because obviously that's very bullish. Once again, we know that is not the way it works, and I don't think this is a far stretch at all. Because if people think, okay, it's going to be good for Bitcoin, January 20th, then it's not a far stretch at all that the same people are going to be thinking, okay, it's also going to be good for Dogecoin. So what I'm thinking is the following. If we see a strong move up into January 19th, January 20th, which could come from here, I'm just seeing upward bullish consolidation. So you see a strong move up somewhere close to all-time high or even past all-time high. I personally think past all-time high is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but it could be. So let's keep with my original plan. Anywhere near or past all-time highs, if price impulse is there on January 19, then you have the perfect recipe for an intercycle top. Why? We had a massive run up. Like, we already had a massive run up, but if it gets here, then it's truly. That's why I don't know if it's going to happen, because it is quite a move still. It's still like a 70% move. But Doge has done wilder things, right? Remember this. I mean, even this one must have been massive. It's 700%. I mean, came from much lower prices, obviously, but this one in 1 week, 581%. Crazy. So say that happens, then you have the perfect recipe for an cycle top, because you have the time where the sentiment is on your side, because everyone's going to be thinking, oh, well, the Doge department is getting official. That's very bullish. You also have FOMO, because price is how do you say it? Price is rocketing up, right? Price is rocketing up near all-time highs. And if you have that on the day of the inauguration, then obviously the FOMO is going to be insane. People are going to be freaking out that, I mean, the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to go to the Doge Reddit, right? That's what I did last time as well. If you remember, I sold this because I went on the Doge Reddit. I was like, okay, we have resistance right now. We have pure FOMO. Because if you went to the Doge Reddit, everyone was aping in. So I kind of want to see the same thing. If price gets here at around January 19, on January 19, which is still quite a stretch. So I don't know if it's going to happen. That's why it's a scenario. But if it happens, price rockets there, January 19. And if I go in the Doge Reddit, and I will see everyone freaking out about aping into Doge, and that the Doge department is going to be official and stuff like, am I too late? People are going to be aping into that. Then I will probably sell all my bags on January 19 and wait for a retrace in order to buy back lower. Honestly, I might even do it if price is more here and I see the same thing, right? I just want to see massive FOMO around January 19 and people really, a last spike maybe, freaking out that, okay, it's going to be the best time to buy. It just seems like the perfect storm. So this is something I'm looking at for Dogecoin on a higher time frame view. All right, let me quickly jump in the chat. So 20th January marked in the calendars, or 19th of January. That's what I'm eyeing to do my next sell on Dogecoin. And honestly, even if because if this would have happened and say price then does something like this and I miss out on the final run, and I cannot be too. I don't think that would happen. By the way, I would be shocked if this happens. I would be very shocked. Not impossible, but I would be shocked. But even if that were happen, I bought here, sold here, bought here, then sold again there. I mean, great run. Like this alone is, with this combined, that's like over a 10x, perfectly fine. All right, not talking about the screens, and I'm talking about the resolution on stream. It's 720p. Can't set it any higher. I'm sorry, man. I'm using new software today, which is probably what it is. So I'll check it out. I'm sorry, man. Starting struggles. I'll check out after why this thing is not streaming in 1080p. It definitely should be streaming in 1080p. I'll check it out. Next stream is going to be 1080p. All right, so that's Dogecoin. Final one, obviously, was. Let me quickly check. I'm going to check, what time is it? FET. And then very quickly, and then I'm going to shut things down. But let me quickly check what Ethereum is doing. So very nicely hit into that supply zone. Indeed. No short yet. Although, no, it's not. And here you can once again go back to the screen right here, and we can see what ETH is doing. So right now we see that the current session is reaching exhausted bull levels. You could do the same thing for Ethereum, or I might have them drawn out in the chart. I actually have it drawn out in the chart. This is a session interval high. So for this session, for this New York session, you're basically looking for a high to be put in somewhere in this area, right? Which we have now entered. So this fair value gap, or sorry, this demand zone, not a fair value gap, is within this area. So logically, this makes for a good area to look for shorts. However, if I look at the current session, I still see a strong bull signal. So once again, I would not short against that. The reason why it's a strong bull signal is, once again, if I go to the summary page and we see ETH, we see that 10% of sessions would take out the session lows. So let me quickly, so right here, right? So only in 10% of cases would price move up this high for the session and then take out the lows. So this is the same theory of what I've been saying. You know, the further price moves away from this box, the less likely it is to take out the opposite side, in this case, the low. So I would not trade against that. You know, the 10% probability, at least not if you don't have, you know, maybe you can, but you have to have confirmations in this case, because not only do we have 10% probability of taking out the low, we also have an 80% probability of more distance for the current session, right? So 80% of sessions would see further displacement to the upside. See that 79.5, which means that it more likely than not, you know, if the low holds, which is 90% certainty, more or less, say 85 to be conservative, then with 80% certainty, we are gonna take out that New York P2. And we can even check here. So the current P2 is not a very likely P2, although I think, honestly, it's difficult to say for, let me just check this. ETH, oh, that's Aave. ETH. So for me, this is not a short. You also see that the current session is just making higher highs and higher lows. Even on the 3-minute, the lowest structure is here. I would not count this structure. So, you know, bullish stats on the session, exhausted stat on the day. No short for me. And yeah, not the most likely time to put in a pivot either. So I would say it's going higher. All right, fat. Where is the Bybit? Oh man, I cannot do fat because I don't have fat in the dashboard. I'm sorry, man. I miss the statistics. I'll take a quick look at it and say my general thoughts, but I don't have any stats in it. And I prefer to work with stats, as you know. But this one is not in the charts or in the stats in the dashboard. So I don't want to make too many predictions on it, but all in all, I mean, it's very clear that it's in this consolidation zone right here. It's trying to break out now, but definitely no confirmed breakout here. The consolidation zone, in my opinion, would be right there. So right now it's trying to break out. Need to do that again. I mean, if it breaks here, that's all I'm going to say. If it breaks here, it's looking very good for a continued upside. But I personally, I mean, I wouldn't buy here. It's too high up. I wouldn't short here given the state of the market either. So for me, this is just a no trade area. But this is clearly the range zone it has been in, the consolidation. But I mean, it held up. I mean, it's still an 80% drop. That's crazy. 80%. But, you know, on a higher time frame view, it actually looks really nice because you do have, you barely missed that one. Or, oh, we did touch it. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, so this is a really good demand zone where we bounce from. So that's a very nice low. Not only that, you know, the market structure is still intact. You have the weekly low here. Let me change that to the weekly. Yeah, I need to change all these saved templates because I've changed to wide charts. Joined right side, weekly high, right there. So this weekly low is still intact in terms of structure. And not only that, we came into this, you know, massive supply zone or a demand zone, really massive. So that's a really nice bounce. Filled this fair value gap as well. I mean, I would say this chart is looking really good for her continued upside. This is a really nice low. Let me check. Yeah, not in terms of that, but you're not always going to have the perfect low. And this, yeah, this is, and the monthly, this is a nice low. So this is a really nice low. When you have this one bearish, and then this one bullish and taking out the high of this one, right? That would be, I think, called the Model 2 accumulation. But I'm no expert in that, so definitely don't hold me on to that. But the low is really good. That I definitely know. How to call it? I think it's Model 2. But regardless, this is a very nice low on the monthly, right? You have this monthly demand zone followed by this beautiful low. You keep weekly market structure intact. I mean, this is looking really good. More locally, I mean, you are in this range, so I'd be careful with market structure because more often than not, it constantly breaks. But more locally, this was the market structure. If you take it from the lows, they there, and then right here. So now you're basically retesting this this high. I wouldn't consider it broken yet. Let me get that one out. Yeah, I mean, I reached the same conclusion. I wouldn't long it here. I wouldn't short it either because it's looking very healthy. Basically, this is the market structure high. It's also the high of the range, so you do want to break this. I personally don't think it is broken yet, or too early to say it is confirmed. Let's see if we got a negative 272. So we tap that. Prefer seeing it close there because it's usually where we reject from. Like for my market structure rules, I always want to see like a close above this, and then I say it's a clear break. Right now we didn't have it yet, so I wouldn't consider this broken just yet. But it seems like a matter of time because this is a really nice low, and as long as this stays intact, because this is all just noise in between. Like this here. I mean, if this would happen, and this would be a really interesting area. I'm actually going to set alerts there. That right there. Because there you have the high volume area. You have like two high volume nodes, right? Point of control, point of control. But I would be surprised to see it go all the way down there, though. It looks too bullish to me. So this is looking really nice. For upside, lead those. So far, this is trending up from the lows. And we also broke, because I would say this is the most important swing high. And you're also breaking that. I mean, that I consider broken. So it looks good for continuing upside. And I mean, I don't see any reason why it couldn't reach the high we put in 2024 already. I don't know what the. Let me check. And then it's already at all-time high. So this is already the all-time high. Well, looks like it will revisit it. So looks good. All right, guys, man, I'm sorry. I see one more Lumia, but I am 1.5 hours, more than 1.5 hours in, and this is my sweet spot. I want to just, so I'm going to call things right there. I just want to take a quick look around the main ones we have been looking at, which is obviously Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum, and then I'm going to shut things off. Let's see right here. All right, so Bitcoin still within that zone right here. Again, I prefer to wait until tomorrow before making any definitive conclusions on where we're going to go. So, for example, if this were to happen tomorrow, say on the Tuesday open, you take that, then I would not trade against this anymore, and chances for 100K become more likely. Although I am more biased to see a range here, right, as you know. But, you know, once again, and as always, it has become the same old song that we have been singing here, that you do not want to trade against a Monday pivot, right? Once again, I've already said it, that Bitcoin in the last 30 weeks sees a Monday pivot 86.2% of weeks, right? Here we see, 86.7%. Absolutely massive. I mean, you can go here and see it. So if you go to the distance page, you have this table right here where it shows us where all the pivots are put in. I mean, look at this, right? So these are all the P1s: Monday, 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 Tuesday, Monday, 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 Tuesday, Monday, Monday, Wednesday, Monday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, 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 and so on, right? A lot of Mondays. So you don't want to if, which basically, you know, you have the most clearest view of direction. So say Tuesday opens right here. If we do this, more downside is likely for the week. If we do this, more upside is likely for the week. I'm personally biased for consolidation, but it is a little bit too early to say it, in my opinion. So I'm going to wait for that Tuesday open to see what's happening there. Let's take a check at Solana. This is actually one I'm interested in because I am considering, because I've held Solana and I'm considering selling it. Or rotating it into something else, maybe ETH, although I'm a little bit ETH heavy already. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. This would be a really interesting area to look for a short if it gets here. And otherwise, this point of control is also interesting, because you basically have this supply zone right on that point of control. So say, for example, this happens. Whoops, that's too much. This happens, and you keep that Monday high intact, which I think for Solana is also pretty reliable. Let us check Solana. That would be a really interesting one, right? Because then you have a very confident P1 as the weekly high in a good zone, in a supply zone, and then you're looking for a little bit lower, which would be retracement. Either way, I do think it's temporary. Like this all-time high is going to get broken, right? I do think this is more a retracement to get a lot of people to sell and then shoot past all-time highs, but it might take a while. Who knows? Mondays, 60%, Solana. So also that, I mean, it's crazy how often it happens on Bitcoin, right? But less often on altcoins. Bitcoin and Ethereum seems to be the most likely one. So I wouldn't place too much emphasis on, I would place more emphasis on the place rather than the time on Solana. So we're going to check that tomorrow and I'll update you guys as things go on. Ethereum chart. Once again, so you see now this is nice. You see that continuation in the bounce up, right? We had that pretty strong reaction at first. we said, well, the session is still bullish. Once again, talking about the New York session, this one that ends here. So preferably I would see it go higher. But the thing I wanted to look at was for the week. Once again, recap the plan. Let me get the session intervals out and look at the weekly intervals. Yeah, so this is actually a really nice zone to put in a weekly low and just continue going higher, like really nice. Right? The closer you are in this zone, I mean, if we would do this, then I would say we're in for a bullish weekend. We're looking for a high to be put in somewhere here. If we go further down, then it's what I said. If you go further down, you don't see a fast spike down today, which we won't. I'm pretty sure about that, given the session statistics. Then a small retracement week is more likely, and you're looking for some bottoming formation here, followed by taking out the high after, right? So it will be dependent on what's happening here, but this is a really nice area to put in a weekly low, right? If we're going to put in a weekly low, then this is a good area to do it from. This would have actually been a really nice place, regardless, to look for a long if you were trading the lower time frames today, considering you are at the lows of a local range. And we put in an exhausted daily signal right here. And then right after that, you put in a bullish New York signal right there, as we saw on the multi-time frame page. Just quickly grab that one. So that was actually a nice one. And this has the potential to be a low for the week. Definitely has the potential. Still holding that fair value gap there. Here, see, it's still strong bull. And bull on the 4 hour and strong bull on the hour. So let's see what happens. So once again, to reiterate, if this one holds and you go up from here, I would expect to see a bullish week and end somewhere within here, right? So then you have the supply zones from earlier, which you can look at. I mean, obviously we have the 2024 highs resting in those zones. So you wouldn't expect it to go any further than that this week, right? These two highs right here. Important to look at. If that doesn't happen and we do see like some reversal here today or tomorrow, preferably today, right, where you don't take out the weekly high, would be the ideal scenario. You go like this. I would say a slight bearish week, which wouldn't go any lower than this right here. And then you're looking for a bounce here. And then it would be a very interesting bounce area. Although, man, I think this would not be a weird place to put in a weekly low at all. Especially because you've been building that support. The structure is looking pretty good. You know, you're putting in structure like this. And this would basically be the retest of that right there, which we basically already did here, off that fair value gap. Yeah, wouldn't be surprised to see this as the weekly low, but let's see. All right, guys, I want to wait. Let me do one more comment. Sergio, remember the comment about Bitcoin week? Yeah, I do. 6-8 being highly corrected according to the last 2 cycles. We're on week 5. What are your thoughts about it? All right, I'll do that as last question. It's a good question, and I like the topic. So let's dive into that. Let's dive into it. All right, so as you know, I really like to take into account time. So that's why I like the question. I think time is one of the most undervalued, and I'm not just talking about the time as in statistics we are using. I think time is one of the most undervalued concepts in trading. So you're talking about the six-day impulsive, 6-week impulsive move, sorry. The thing I like to look at is the previous here. So the breakout of this consolidation here, which was smaller than what we have here, was from here. So the first correction you will see is probably similar to those 6-week period that you mentioned. is here, 81 days, which is more or less, man, it's even more. It's like 11 weeks until you had the first really serious correction. Because I wouldn't, like, you can say this was the first serious correction, 6 weeks, which with the line, right? So negative 10%, but we've already seen that. I would consider, it's actually a good point. Now, this is a good point to take, because what I like to do is not to take the high, but I like to take the point where price starts consolidating and slowing down, right? So this is obviously not the high end of the consolidation, but it is clearly the point where price really starts struggling to go higher. So we enter this consolidation period before moving higher. I like to take it two ways. So one, I like to take it from there, from the low, and then also the one that you use that from the breakout, right? So if we measure both ones, let's check. We have the breakout here. So how long do we go from there? 6 weeks. And then we have the low here. Yeah, and this one's actually really nice. Look at that. Look at that, man. Look at that. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Let me just delete that. I mean, 1 week apart, but you can see, I mean, guys, like these kind of things. This is obviously how I, this is actually not how I timed the top, because I was looking for a top on the 24th, and I was putting it on the 23rd, but I hadn't even found this confluence yet. So this is just measured from the low towards the first area where we see consolidation, right? And you can see that this area of consolidation lines up perfectly, almost perfectly, with that area of consolidation we saw earlier. Now, the one thing to note, though, is that the previous consolidation was both smaller and not as long. I mean, smaller in relative terms. We're talking about 200 days versus 250 days, and a 40% retracement, or 35% against like 25 to 30%. But still, the one we came from is it is bigger, right? It's just bigger. You can also see it like this. I mean, this is really a crazy consolidation. But what I mean to say with that is that there is an opportunity that this impulse is going to last a little longer. However, I'm inclined to say that it's more likely that price is going to consolidate for a bit below 100K. So, let me put it like this. If we will not be able to reach 100K, which I think at the moment is the most likely scenario, then I would not expect a sharp correction here. I would just expect it to be, this to be it, right? Where we go like this, because it is just very, very nicely aligns with, for example, what we saw here. And you often see, and this is one of the reasons as well why I said here at 92K, long, long, that's long. There's no signs of weakness, because you have the similar thing is here. But, and from the low to that first consolidation, this is more or less the same period, right? As we have seen, almost, I mean, too beautifully lining up with the top. So if we see that consolidation keep going here, then I would say, okay, well, this was it, right? And then you could wonder to yourself, okay, how long is that going to take? Because I do believe the next consolidation period, or the next leg up, is loading. I do think this main leg, because you have to think about it like this, the leg up that you're looking at is more or less, from here to here. So whatever, and if you do that, then you can see, we're nowhere near the end of that. Doesn't have, obviously there's a deviation here, if you want to be, I think there could be a real case that the 20th of January is going to be the top, or the intercycle top, because of what I explained earlier. But we see that whatever is happening here is more likely to be temporary consolidation before the next leg up. Because not only, I mean, this is of course a massive move, but you have to put it, I wrote a whole post about it, you have to put it relatively, this is a massive consolidation, like absolutely massive. So this is a temporary consolidation. is my opinion, before we break 100K. And if we break 100K now, then I would be looking at this as the next time zone where we indeed are going to be putting in. So say this would happen, then this would be a zone where we're looking at a very serious consolidation for a while. That would actually very nicely set up for, that move back up towards the 20th of January right there, and then dump it on, well, I don't think it's going to go that low. That's over-exaggerated. Dump it on everyone's faces. That's scenario A. The second scenario, which I personally think at the moment is more likely, is where we see something like this, and then that is the consolidation that we're looking for. So those are my thoughts on it. But you see how nicely the timing aligns, especially with this one, right? That's no coincidence. And the nice thing about it was, and it's also the reason why I said, okay, I'm expecting that high to be somewhere around the 23rd of November, is because if you check this out, so we have here, so impulses, like this is an impulsive stage, right? Impulse, retrace, impulse, retrace, impulse, and where right now is a retrace. So these things have a life cycle to it, and the times are important. So if you look at this, well, let me just quickly, that was the high, yes. So this one was 124 4-hour bars, that impulse. Then you see that this one was 113 bars, and the one before it, which I have skipped right here, also 112 bars, right? So you see they're more or less similar. I really want to get the data on this thing. So that's why I said, okay, well, I'll take the low end of that, 130 bars, and then look for a top right there. Now, if you could do the same here, by the way, that we're thinking like, okay, but when is price going to continue? You can look at the times here. But the reason why I think this time might take a little longer is because the time we just looked at, right, that we had the 6, or if you measure it from the breakout from here, what we just did, that it just perfectly aligns. And this is the first time we are seeing a sign of weakness. So it's the same here, right? We broke out, upward grind, upward grind, upward grind, last impulsive move. And then first signs of weakness, we grind up a little more, break this high and break down. But basically, this was just a big consolidation. So we have now the exact same timing period, so to say. We have this point right here. So we have to understand that this kind of impulse doesn't go up forever, because on the 12-hour, this is a very nice impulse. But on the weekly, you can see it, it's still drawn out there. But on the weekly, this is just one impulse, right? So a 4-hour trend is, well, a weekly impulse. There's one impulse right here. When we put it like this, there's one impulse right here is a 4-hour uptrend on the weekly. So at some point, this thing is going to take a breather. And that's exactly what happened here, right? Where you saw some form of consolidation here. And we're more or less now in that time period where you need to see some form of consolidation for that, or where you expect it. So since it's such a high time frame, you have to think in high time frames as well. Then this is more or less the zone in which you're expecting it to happen, where this is the earliest, more or less. You would need more data to really make a decisive guess on that, an educated guess. Well, this is an educated guess. Whoops. But you see the zone right there. And then I go back full circle to what I earlier said. If we break out of 100K this week, then yes, I would definitely think that this is more or less a zone where you could expect some form of heavier consolidation. If that doesn't happen, then expect this consolidation to just last here for a bit before we break that 100K. And then this was already the moment where you had that consolidation. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, it aligns perfectly, man. I've done crazy analysis with time where it just aligns too perfectly. Man, there's six viewers left. So shout out to all my loyal 6 viewers. I'm gonna give you the final cherry on the top, which is the craziest time analysis for me. And a big point on where I base my cycle analysis on as well for this cycle. So let me check. because this happens on all time frames, right? We just did it on a little bit lower time frames, and then we have also the higher time frames like the weekly, the monthly, and so on. I mean, look at this. Let me put it on the log chart. Let me go to the BitGet one. Whoops. Bitfinex is the one I mean. There we go. All right, so if we look at bear market high right here, was 364 days. Or was it, which one was it again? Let me check how I pulled that. So bear market high to bear market low, 364 days. Bear market low to bear market high. Wait, sorry. Low right there. I mean, it depends on the chart you're taking, but I have another chart where this was low. That's where I put it from. But regardless, it's more or less, it's the same idea, right? Because this is the first, this is really the low you put in. I mean, you sweep it slightly one more time after, but this is the low. More or less. This is the high. I mean, this is so clunky that I don't think I want to include this one. But let's include it for now. I don't think this one is too clean. And then again, all right, so we have 4 on 6 days of retracement, but I don't know if this was the actual top. I guess it was. Yeah, it must have been. Then we have here, we put in the low, right? And then we slowly start to make up speed one more time. But in general, I would say this was the low. We go up for 1,064 days. Then we go down for 364 days. Then we go up for 1,064 days. You know, you notice something? 1,064, 4-year cycle, anyone? Then we go down here, and let's see how long that was until we put in the bottom. 364 days, right? Look at that. 364 days, 364 days. And here 406. Also still close within the margin, right? So this is 406 days down, 1,064 days up, 364 days down, 1,064 days up, 364 days down. 4-year cycle. 4-year cycle, right? So you extrapolate that, and you are looking at the top, you know, if this continues more or less somewhere in October 25, which I think would make a lot of sense. So for me, you know, if like part of my scaling out strategy is just that, well, I do think you don't want to tempt fate too much. So it's not like I'm going to sell everything here. You know, also have some other things you're looking at, but you know, somewhere from the, like this is like, the further you get to this, you know, this is like a danger zone. At some point here, you want to seriously consider scaling out, right? In my opinion. And you can see how beautifully that works. I mean, on a high time frame, in my opinion, this is crazy. And it works, in my opinion, this is going to keep on working, because what's going to happen is that the further we get here, what's going to happen is that everyone's going to scream, this is a super cycle, it's never going to be the same thing. You know, we have nationwide adoption, we have a Bitcoin strategic reserve. This is so bullish. I saw a guy tweeting this shit actually, and it will never be the same, and we will keep going up forever, right? And every cycle something similar happens, which I think is why this works. I could probably, you know, you could probably show this to people, and by the time we get here, you could show this to a lot of people, and they would probably say, well, yeah, that's how it used to work, but you know, this time is different because we have all these blah blah blah, reason X, reason Y, reason Z, why this time is different. I don't think it's going to be different. I think we're going to see bear market. Yes, I do think the bear markets are going to be more shallow than we're used to, because obviously what is happening is very bullish, but it doesn't mean it's not going to be a bear market and we're just going to see up only forever, right? It doesn't work like that. So I do plan on selling, and what I think is going to happen is that somewhere here, you're going to see more and more this narrative going from, okay, like this is a super cycle, and I wrote about it here, and it was actually very funny. So go with me here. is that that's me. Let me check where I wrote it. All right, so here I wrote it. The further the cycle goes, the more people will convince themselves that this time is different. You already see it, super cycle, bro. So basically, the things I just said, paradigm shift, bro. There's always a reason. Last cycle, the reason was that institutions were entering. That also did not end well. So if you're around, you might remember that here everyone's like, "Oh, this is a super cycle. It's going to be different forever," because the institution entering, and it was like MicroStrategy, for example. So, we have like really strong buys. We're never going to have a bear market again. And that was the narrative back then. And in the next months, we will see the super cycle narrative increase in strength. At some point, it will be dominant. That's when we want to get out. And I want to emphasize, I do believe in the theory of super cycle, as in that we're going to see really strong uptrend over the next decades. But I think the mistake people make is thinking, well, that means we're going to go up forever and there's not going to be any top. It's like, no, it's probably going to be like a less aggressive, maybe it's going to be a 40%, 50% drawdown in the bear market instead of 70 or 80%. That is what I think is way more likely, at least. So, if you see these timings, I mean, so beautiful, man, like really perfect. It's no coincidence, right? Because it's just a 4-year cycle. It happens in commodities. It happens in stocks. It's a 4-year global liquidity cycle, what you're looking at. So I'm looking at this as a very important time where, well, let me put it like this. There's a very small chance that I'm still going to be allocated by the time October comes. So that's a very cool one. Too early for an alt, Matt C, too early for an alt season, but it's better long-term if we have another one on Bitcoin anyway. Agreed. I also think it's too early on alt season. There's like a mini little alt season going on now, but it's still like nothing, obviously. I have my alt season window somewhere here between December and March. Well, that's for the first run. But I think the real run is probably going to be in the middle of the year, right? Where you see the real alt season. So I agree. Appreciate you highly, Sergio. Appreciate that, man. Matt, see, I totally agree with you, but in the previous cycles, people speculated that this and that will happen, and this cycle is actually happening. ETFs happened, adoption is happening. I'll definitely sell as well, but I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get a super cycle. Just thought, well, I do think we're going to get a super cycle, right? That's what I mentioned. I do think we're going to get a super cycle, but I think people think it means you're just going to go up forever, which I don't think it means. I think it's just going to be a shallower bear market, but still a bear market nonetheless, say 40, 50%. But I mean, I also think, of course, that's why I'm saying there's a lot of bullish things happening. All the things that are happening right now are, in fact, fundamentally very bullish, which is why we're probably going to see massive increases in price over the next decades. But it's also important to see everything relative, as in, of course, there is like to push Bitcoin higher and higher. Like the market cap keeps growing, so you keep needing more bullish things to happen than to reach the same kind of percentage effect, right? So because we are getting to such high market capitalizations, I mean, it's still very small in terms of financial markets, I realize that, but you have to put the bullishness relative to the state of the market. And it's still really bullish. Like everything is happening is crazy bullish. But what I think that's going to lead to is just a massive expansion in this cycle. So say something like, where did I have the other... I mean, it doesn't matter. So say you have October right here, and you just see a very nice expansion into here. I don't know, say somewhere here. I don't think it's going to be much higher, to be honest. That's the thing, part trap. And then instead of, let's just measure it out. Instead of saying, I mean, what did we have last time? We had a massive bear market, right? 77%. Let's say, instead of 60%, because I do think that one was like, so instead of going all the way here, we might go, here or something, put in the base there. And then, keep on going up. So in my opinion, that's what the super cycle is. And I do think there's a very good chance of that happening. Which is probably also why a lot of people are going to be late with buying in the bear market. But I do believe in a super cycle. I just hold a different definition of it. But anyway, what I wanted to show is that I posted this, and then, the one thing you always want to watch out for is what influencers are saying. And the day after I posted this, look at this. This bull run will be a lot different. There probably won't be a significant bear market in crypto now for 10 plus years. The 4-year cycle is over. FTX was the cause. complete bullshit. FTX was at the bottom, right? FTX collapsed when Bitcoin was at 20K. So this is just looking for excuses. It's not true, or at least I think it's not true. FTX was the cause. Otherwise, we would have hit 100,000 a long time ago. I don't think so. Normal big capitulation events up only for 10 plus years, right? So this is an influencer, and this is exactly the kind of narrative I say is going to grow in the next couple of months. And the more you see it, the less likely it is to happen, right? Super cycle does not mean you're not going to have any retracement. I think you saw that very well on gold. Wow, I would have to look at it. I'm already ranting on for too long, guys. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you learned anything too. Thank you so much for still watching. If you're still watching, 2 hours in, that's a long one. So we're going to wrap it up. I'm going to look into the 1080p issue. Thank you for flagging that. I'm sorry it wasn't 720p. Next time it will be 1080p. All right, guys. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Next stream is on Wednesday. It's going to be me alone. We're probably going to do some more session and intra-daily analysis then. Appreciate you, Zish. All right, guys. Thanks very much. See you on the next one. Ciao, ciao, guys. Have a good one.